the actual sightings together, not all the information, because we start taking all this information that's coming from NASA and everything else like that. We're often talking about sightings that are beyond, that are taken from satellites beyond this Earth, effectively. And I suddenly thought, well, actually, if we're talking about comets, we're really talking about sightings of comets, the things that are relevant to humanity, I suppose, sightings of comets that can be seen from Earth. And so I started doing this massive research over probably about 6 months to a year of uncovering on YouTube and whatever blogs and on whatever sort of like wherever I could find them, really, evidence of where people have photographed or videoed something that looked like an unusual kind of twin-tailed object. And I started finding Comet Ice and Comet Ellen, and all these people thought they were different types of comets, asteroids, and what have you. And when I started finding that there was a 198-day, 200-day kind of interval between all of these sightings, then I started using that model to find more and more sightings until I'd pretty much uncovered, out of the 13 cycles that I'm assuming that Nibiru has had round Nemesis as it's gone over the top of the sun, I'm assuming that we've got distinct evidence for 11 of those full cycles it's made as it's gone, nearly full cycles as it's gone over the top of our sun. So you can imagine, it's, in my opinion, this thing came in, we talk about sort of like, we talk about the days of Carlos Ferrado, discovering it in the sort of like, in the early part of the 20th century, as you mentioned it earlier in the show, in your last show. And then we've had Zakhar Sitchin and all the rest of these people coming in, giving us this kind of long calendar of about 3,600 year orbit and all the rest of it. But I'm imagining that this thing and it has been coming in under our sun and under the Earth, starting about 98, 2001, coming in under Earth, under our sun, up through the ecliptic of our solar system, back over the top of the sun, and all the way back to coming back, cutting down through the ecliptic again, and coming out, and coming back out from whence it came. And that being a real cycle of about, since 2001, maybe a bit earlier, 1998. I could even believe now, because the amount of disinformation that NASA has distinctly put out about this, I could quite easily believe that Comet Halley-Bopp.
Right. And yeah, go ahead.
Well, it's just, when you start putting this data together and you start coming up with all these flybys, the most recent flyby date or prediction I put out, unfortunately, Freudian slip, it came into sight 4 days before or 2 days before I made the video. So I made it up in Glastonbury, and that last long video I made, saying that I was going to give out the critical dates. And the thing about this tail here, this dual tail object as seen in mobile image, when we saw the Becky Lewis shot, the most recent one that I put on the beginning of my last video, the thing about that was that you could see two distinct twin tail objects in that image. Now that's the third time out of the 13 kind of like images that or videos that I've put together that have given me the whole sequence. Two of those previous images show distinct this whole thing, because it is so insane to think that you can have this massive thing up there, and if you take it too serious, it gets very worrying. But this thing is exactly where Nibiru, now this thing is now in the same place where Nibiru has been for the last 2 or 3 years since we've been charting it. This is the same sort of shot, and they look very similar to each other, just that one's a bit smaller than the other. But if you do a screen share with me here, Steve.
Yes.
This Jeff P has got this I'm just going to hold this in freeze frame here, and just on this page, so you can actually see the you can see Jeff P's name, the name of his video there. Record-breaking size of Planet X, red shadows seen in Germany, and 3 other cameras. Now this is on the 8th of the 6th. I suppose that's in British. That's the 6th, I suppose, of August. We do the dates the other way around in England, so it all gets a bit confusing. But that's recent. That's 2 days ago. Now that I'm
remote viewers, Major Dames, I think was his name, and Major Ed Dames, right? And he actually had the remote viewing program that he was working with the United States government, which he is a very targeted individual. He doesn't even like to talk anymore. He used to be very public. Now he's not anymore. Point being is that one of the key events was this conflict in North Korea. And, if something happens, again, I stand firmly on the feet that killing is not a necessary way in any way, shape, or form to solve a problem between beings. Has never been and never will be. I stand against war in every single way. But if this comes down the way that you're imagining it, this is going to be this kind of I don't want to say magic because I don't want to sound weird. It's going to be a sense of wonderment that will open up. Wonderment is the word I'm looking for. A sense of wonderment upon the human race that it's never experienced before. Don't you think, David?
I do, but I wouldn't say never. I would say that this thing has come. I'm of a mind that this thing has come around every September, 1995, and it happened. The BBC covered it. The sort of like it was all on the major news networks and everything else like this, and I can remember hearing the news. And I just thought, oh, that just sounds absolutely too mad. And everyone I spoke to, even though it was all over the news, and I was trying to imagine the possibility. I mean, it was massive. It was really massive. It happened right across India. It happened in lots of countries outside of India. And then all of a sudden, it just wouldn't happen. And look, you could hold the spoon up to these statues. And it revolved around a number of statues. It revolved around Nandi, which is the consort of Shiva. It revolved around Shiva, and it revolved around Ganesh. And Ganesh was the son of Shiva, whose head he chopped off because he thought he was sleeping with Parvati. And he caught him in bed with his mother and thought it was another man and chopped off his head. And when he realized it was his own son, in the tale, he said, I'll give you the head of the first person who walks by. And of course, it was an elephant that walked by. And I mean, it's a crazy story. And what kind of like, what deeper meaning. And I've just heard there might be a crazy party in India on Parvati's birthday, which was like about 3 weeks later in India. I'd never been to India, and the thought of just going to India and just flying off to a party and coming out to India to a crazy gathering on the eclipse line just seemed so mad. I was just like, no, I can't. Well, it just seemed so far-fetched. And I rang my mum up and I said, oh, I said, it's not that I want to go to the eclipse. I said, the biggest thing I just don't know is if this really is a miracle, and this is a crazy sign coming in that this is a miracle. There's a miracle going on, and can I believe in it? No one else I spoke to could do anything about it. They just, it's a hoax. It's a this. It's a that. They couldn't move past it in any way. They couldn't act on it in any way, shape, or form. And I was just puzzled if there was a sign from divine grace to me. I don't think it was going to get any better. The growing industry in the world today is the entertainment and music industry. It's expanding. The whole arts industry has become worth so much that it's much, much bigger. And because of all the computing and everything else, that it's much, much bigger. And because of all the computing and everything else like that, all these new industries are exploding. War is it's such a last millennium kind of thing. It just has no place in an abundant universe. It really has no place. And so I ended up at this crazy party that for me was the very beginning of this. I'd never seen anything like it in all my life. It was the most life-changing party. And those people, ironically, that are putting on this party are also putting the very same people that are coming together to put a party on, ironically, are putting on a party. I used to go to all the eclipse parties. I used to travel around. After it changed my whole life going to that because it made me aware. It made me aware of the cosmic. It was the first time I'd ever seen beyond the sun. First time I'd seen all the planets and everything else and everything. So it's such a fascinating thing that if you're curious about Nibiru, and they're gonna try and terrify you to go to. They're gonna tell you it's gonna be terrible traffic. You become a cosmic being because you're seeing the cosmos. You're not just seeing the dark sky. You're seeing what's actually right there. You're seeing your own solar system. If it's not, even if it's cloudy. I went up to Mongolia, like I say, to see an eclipse and Comet Halley-Bopp. And I've been to some of the crazy. I went up to a crazy party in Colombia. I went up to a crazy party in Venezuela. I've been to some crazy eclipse parties over the years, which is probably why I've ended up kind of running a venue in Glastonbury or working on running a bar or working on a bar with a bunch of mates that sort of like that are kind of on a very old circuit that have kind of like You know what I mean? We've all become part of these little parties and sound systems and kind of like these new clans that have come out of this new industry, this entertainment industry that has brought us all together and has shown us a different way. And so I want to come to that. I really like to come to that. And honestly, I really haven't got the money to come over there, but I have had this lovely chap. I won't say his full name because he's a lovely chap, Tom, who's an absolutely fascinating guy he's a very biblical man, but he's a biblical man in the way Veliskowski is, or the way you could say, I suppose, what's his name?
Eschatology of Christianity looks like a script, doesn't it, Dave?
Yeah, and it's like to me, you know, when they readjusted the calendar, you know, in my actually last video, I was talking about how I was woken up by my girlfriend at like 4 a.m. to look at a star, and it was on our iPhone. It was actually called DIPHDA, DIPHDA, but SETI Alpha, is it? It's I might have it